The purpose of this tutorial is to show you how to use the Transition Planner as a way to guide our instruction. So the Transition Planner, you've probably seen it before. It's available within Schoology, but the Transition Planner was created to provide us, the transition teachers, with a systematic way to help plan our instruction by identifying the student's strengths and the needs. The Transition Planner includes 24 essential transition skills. It's intended for this Transition Planner to be taken annually by the students, so at the beginning of every school year. And the Transition Planner is divided into 6 categories based on information and data reports from the California Department of Education. So in bullet points down here at the bottom, these are the 6 categories that you'll see on the Transition Planner. So we'll take a look at it here in a minute. But basically, before we see it, the Transition Planner is a pre-assessment tool. So a pre-assessment tool is a way that teachers can determine what our students already know, what they understand, and what they can do. So this allows us to plan what exactly we're going to teach our students. So our goal is that we will be able to deliver targeted, individualized instruction. So not blanket activities, so assigning blanket activities to all 9th graders and having all 9th graders receive activity number 12 because it happens to be the teacher's favorite activity. But rather it is that Christopher completed activity number 12 because the results of his Transition Planner showed that activity number 12 was an area of need. So the Transition Planner is available in 2 different ways. So it's available either printable, which is shown here on the left, or a Google form, which is shown here on the right. So the printable one, I will click on, and I will open it. So this is the Transition Planner. So for this one, you would print this out, or you could email it to a student, give it to a student somehow, and the student would fill it out and then send it back to you. So this would be good in a traditional learning environment. So the student could go through, and you can see here in bold, these are the 6 categories. So it's 2 pages. And underneath each of the categories, there's 4 numbered activities underneath. So underneath job search and preparation, we have 9 through 12. The student would read each of these statements, and if they agree with the statement, they would do a check mark next to it. If they do not agree with the statement, they would leave it blank. There's also a column in here for parents. So this might be helpful if there was a due process situation, if the parent was interested in taking it, whatever it may be. It's not required to have the parent take it, but adding that column in there gives us options in case we want the parent to take it. So moving down to page 2, at the bottom you'll see instructions for how to score it. And we'll cover that in a bit here in the tutorial, but basically what we'd want to see is what were the students' 4 categories that had the fewest amount of check marks. So which categories did they have their greatest area of need? And then those would be the areas that we want to target when we do plan instruction. So the other format for this Transition Planner would be the Google form. So I'll click on this, and this is what it would look like. So it's like a typical Google form. It should be noted that before you assign this to a student, you would assign it through Schoology, and I'll pull up Schoology here to show you that it is listed here underneath your course, but it's important to not assign this to a student until you have completed the tutorial that's titled something along the lines of how to create a personalized link for the Transition Planner, because if you assign this to your students before you create a personalized link, there's a chance that you'll never see your students' responses. So that's the key. We don't want a student to do this and then we never get their results. So until you personalize this Transition Planner to a link that's unique to you, you would see a whole list of several other students that completed it from different schools. So you only want to see the responses from your specific high school. So you want to make sure to complete the tutorial about how to personalize that transition planner link. Okay, so back to the Google Forms. This is what it looks like. So the student would go through and answer each of these different questions, and I'll just fill out this part so you can kind of see what the next step looks like. So they would go through, they're numbered just like the printable one is, simple yes or no answers for almost all of them, and then they would page through, and there's 7 pages. So I think each page has 4 questions. Okay, so that's what the digital one looks like. So the student does the transition planner, then what's next? How do I know what activities I should be assigning to these students? So if a student was to complete the paper form, to score this, what we're wanting to do is to see the categories that the student has the greatest area of need. So in a sample situation, this was just a screenshot from the printable transition planner. But you can see that for this student, in each of the areas, this was what their score was. So we would want to look at the 4 categories that have the fewest check marks. So that means these are the ones that they have the biggest need in. So for this student, those ones highlighted here in turquoise would be the 4 greatest areas of need. So these would be the areas that we should focus our instruction on. Now, if a student completes the Google form, it's a little bit different, but basically once you have that personalized link, remember you'd be taking the tutorial on how to create a personalized link for the transition planner. And once you've done that, you would be able to access the student responses at any time. So you could pull up a list and see all of your responses for the students that took the transition planner. And from those responses, we would be able to see what instruction we should be planning. So this is what that would look like. So if I was to click on that responses, student responses would come up. So it's a Google sheet similar to an Excel sheet, and you would be able to see how the student responded. So their last name, first name, their grade, all of the schools. So again, if you did the personalized link, you would only see those students, and in this case, it's for Van Nuys High School. So you could see for every single question, how did the student respond? So we had a yes here, the student's interested in cosmetology, and you could go all the way through to each of the 24 questions and see how they responded. So just like any other Google sheet or Excel sheet, you are able to sort this data. You would be able to group students by perhaps those students that all said no to activity number 11. You could group them in whatever different ways that you wanted to, by grade, all of those things. So one thing that I added in my own personalized sheet here was some formulas. So this would be something that would be optional if you wanted to add in yours. If you think that this is helpful, I did include a slide in this tutorial with the formulas that I used, if in case you wanted to do it. But if not, it's not required. You would not need to do this. But this is something that I thought would make things a little bit easier. So I set up a formula so that for each of my students, I could see kind of a total here. So I could see how many total no responses did my students have. So for this first student, they had 17 no responses and 6 yes responses. So I can kind of see on there like which students look like they have a pretty good grasp of the skills that are listed on the transition planner, and then which students just have more no's, more areas of need. Then I took it a step further and added formulas for within each category. So within that first category, career awareness and exploration, I was able to see how many no responses did that student have in that category. So for looking at this first student, so I did it for each of the 6 sections. So looking at it for this student, at a quick glance, I'm able to see that their greatest area of need, so the ones with the most amount of number, the highest number in those categories, would be the ones that I really need to focus on for this student. So this student did not know how to do any of the activities within life skills and independent living. They did not know how to do any of the activities within post-secondary planning, and they did not know how to do 3 of the activities for destination and transportation training. So you can kind of see at quicker glance what we're looking at for a student. So again, you can add the formulas in if you want to. You don't have to, but I will include the link to them if you wanted to copy them and put them in your Google Sheet. So as the year goes on, you'll be able to see as students do this. So it's also time-stamped. So it's nice, you can see when they did this. So that's a little bit about what the responses look like. And then this is the link for those formulas if you are interested in adding them to your transition planner. And so now what's next? So next we would then assign activities to students based on their results. So for example, we might see that for a student, an area of need was that first category, the career awareness and exploration category. So then we could look on the Google Sheet, or we could look on the actual printed out printable copy that the student did of the transition planner. And then we would look at which number the student responded no to. So maybe it was number 7, or it was whatever number it was. Then you would know that those would be the activity numbers that you would assign to that student because that was their areas of need. So just with all of this, just remember that our goal behind all of this is that our instruction will be targeted and individualized. So we have a rhyme and we have a reason of why we're assigning these activities to students.